Hello. So I'm just being a little bit technical for now, as the old faithful start dropping in. Archly, can you see and hear me okay? Yeah, I think it looks okay. Hopefully you can all see the altar in the background. We have about three black Madonnas, one Kali, copious amounts of black obsidian. Okay, beloved friends, I think we should make a start. If you've ever been on one of these calls before, you know there's not a lot to see. I invite people to lie down. If you want to, at a certain moment, I'm probably going to go behind my screen, but I might not, you never know. And also it's not so much a transmission call, it's far more personal than that, so maybe the cause would be suited more if you saw my face and all the uncomfortable things I will endeavour to go through to speak to you openly and sincerely about this topic. So, all of this came about in a flurry of 3 days. A certain person sent me an email saying, I could have sworn I read your testimonial this morning on a website which I've freely posted in the last days. And so of course I was curious, I wanted to read it. So I jumped on the link to go and see what she was speaking about. And it was very confusing because it sounded like me. It was so accurate. The details were so accurate. I'm just muting people as they come in. But it wasn't me. But I knew exactly who that person was, that another beloved sister was speaking about. This isn't the first time I've read testimonials like this. We're easily in the double figures. And before my brain could start computing and working and thinking and doing what brains do, my fingers had the better of me. And I was responding by simply saying, I'm going to put a call out about this. Because I've been quiet for so long, far too long. And so here is the response. I will probably be going in and out of many different aspects of myself, so you're going to hear human truths, spiritual truths, facilitator truths, little Julie inner child truths. So please bear with me, we're going to be moving around all over the place, because there are so many layers to this. And I'm speaking on behalf of myself and all the silent ones, the ones who can't speak yet and haven't spoken yet. But before we go anywhere, I ain't going anywhere until we've checked in with those behind me. So if you would bear with me, let's pray. Let's open this with a prayer and let's close this with a prayer. I pray for the Black Madonna, the fierce guardian and authority on the correct insemination of our awakening and our feminine awakening, to speak through me and continue the conversation with you. I pray for clarity, coherence, and to speak all those words that are needed to trigger you, catalyze you, nudge you, and serve your knowing and a wakefulness. This call is on behalf of all of us who have been caught in this web, will get caught in this web, and have been caught in this web. And this call is on behalf of those who warned me, supported me, held me as I slowly and gently recovered. As will I hold you as you warmly and gently recover. Amen. First thing I want to say is that there is a very real and very powerful and very sophisticated virus in our spiritual, tantric, yogic, religious communities. It is close to us, beloved friends. This virus isn't contained within the political systems, the government systems, the arms systems, the police force, the legal systems, prisons, drugs. We think it's nicely contained and thriving in that community, and it doesn't get close to us. Big mistake. It is in the West Coast, it is in London, it is in Totnes in Devon, it is here in France, it is everywhere. And it is an impersonation of the truth. And it is very convincing. And it's right here in our womb community. It might even be on the call. That's how close it is. It will definitely watch this recording. That I can guarantee. I want to stick with only what I know, which is the womb community. I've had stories of tantric teachers, stories of yogic teachers, haven't we all? But I want to tread very close to this womb feminine community. Because the problem, or rather the grace of wombs, is that they make offspring. And this is what I want to bring a lot of light and awareness to. Because if we've been contaminated by this, and I have been, we will have a tendency to speak its poisonous offspring into life, convinced we're sharing sacred gifts with our fellow sisters, and we're not. It has taken me 8 years to get over this, and I might not even be over it yet. Let's have a look at why I got infected. I believe it started when I was about 12. There are many, as I said, we will touch on many things, but here is the most important thing. At the age of 12, I started to pray to take on one of Jesus's 40 days in the wilderness. I prayed that prayer every day, begging to take on one of those days, imagining, hoping that it would mean he would carry less. Now, if you slot that next to my childhood, I have a Catholic father and an atheist mother. I was not allowed to be christened or baptized into the Catholic faith. My mum would not allow it. But of course, that was a lot of tension in my childhood. And there were lots of arguments about me being prone to the devil's influence. This was what my father thought and felt deep within his bones. And of course, my mum is rowing like crazy that no child of ours will be sworn into the Catholic faith. I was brought up with that. I was very much aware of this devil, and hence my great turning to Jesus and praying to take on one of those days in the wilderness. All of this is classic amygdala material. So even at a young age, beloved ones, my little amygdala gland is getting bombarded with religious, spiritual, sexual data. So I'm pretty prone. I'm prone for this kind of interaction. I'm also praying for it to happen. Not so long ago, in contemplation, in prayer, a great spiritual truth descended, that my 8 years of interacting with this energy, or rather it was 2 years of interacting, 6 to recover, was the equivalent of 1 day. So all of that intensity, all of that madness, all of that bewilderment, all of that shatteredness, that terror, that psychic, spiritual terror, 8 years of that equated to 1 day. That is only a spiritual truth. There's the human part. Which was this: before I interacted with this energy, I had a very clear dream. It showed me 2 men. They were very similar looking. One was dark and menacing. The other one was pure and sincere. The voice of the dream said, choose which one. And I chose the dark and menacing one because I knew if I didn't interact with this, I would always wonder what it would be like, and I'd never be able to give myself to the pure and sincere one. In my great naivety, I called this forth, thinking in some kind of romantic, naive, wet behind the ears way, I could interact with this, come away unscathed, and maybe even heal it in the name of Christ, in the name of Jesus, in the name of this great faith. No. That is not possible, because this energy does not reason. It does not feel emotional, human sentimentality. It is not interested in changing. It doesn't have the emotional capacity to even hear you, let alone respond to your request. It is literally hell-bent on impersonating the truth and keeping you close to it by stimulating and catalyzing more and more emotional response from you, whether it's adoration, fear, terror, jealousy, insanity. It is twisted, beloved friends, and it makes you do insane and crazed things. There was a time when this particular energy asked me to commit suicide in the name of love. That's just one of many things. This particular energy, and I'm reeling these in so that you can hopefully recognize, because it's a pattern, it's so easily identifiable. It starts by telling you that you are something special, that you have been chosen, that you're part of a special group. My particular hook was reincarnation of Yeshua's disciples, one of Jesus's disciples. Oh yes, yes, I lovingly and adoringly accept that. You've recognized me. Nice to see you again. That was how I got in. And of course, I wasn't any old disciple, but quite possibly Mary herself. And guess who Jesus was? Sometimes Jesus, sometimes Judas, sometimes Lucifer, sometimes the Antichrist himself. This one has many names. So it's playing my childhood dreams and prayers. And of course the big fear of being captured by the devil because I wasn't baptized. Another great trait is to start to isolate you, take you away from your friends and family, move you to another location. Tell everyone that you're hanging out with that they're poisonous, lower vibration than you, not as conscious as you, potentially able to distract your spiritual progress, have weaknesses, wounds, flaws. And this can include your own parents, and mostly often does, and can include your own children. Mothers can be coerced away from their own young children. I've seen it with my own eyes many times. Moved to an exotic location because this is where the training can be more easily given. Mother not heard from days, weeks, months. Wives separated from husbands because the husband is also apparently of a lower vibration and will distract the wife from further progression. brother against sister, sister against brother. There will also be, of course, high monetary exchanges. In fact, everything being offered to the cause, selling houses for the cause, building ashrams and safe places because the end of the world is coming for the cause, remortgaging houses for the cause, handing over investments and inheritances. Definitely your work will be given up. Everything you've ever studied, crushed and burned on a bonfire. You are being worked, beloved sister and brother. This is not just something that happens in the male teachers. It can happen in the female teachers too. And I have to say, the great and most holy truth, the tendency lives within us all. This is not something out there happening to other people. We all have this little tendency. When it happens to us, we mostly stay silent. Number one, we can't believe it's happening. We cannot believe this is happening. This is what I said to myself. Wow, my wounds are massive because I'm seriously judging this person right now. Of course I am. Intuition was working perfectly, but I thought it was judgment. I thought I was reading the situation wrong. And of course, they're telling me I am. You are slowly and absolutely broken into pieces. And maybe remodeled, refashioned as an impersonation of yourself, holding and continuing to spew forth the virus, especially if you're being shaped and trained to become a facilitator yourself. It is a long process of recovery. But we have to be here to listen to one another's stories and to say, yes, you are experiencing that. Damn right this exists. We have to be willing to leave immediately should we suspect that anything like that is happening or going on with our teacher, with other facilitators. The mind and the wound will keep on telling us, give it another go. And of course, if you've heavily invested, you ain't going to want to hear this, because there is nothing left to fall back onto and into as the being you once was. That being's gone. It has been, here comes the word, annihilated. Maybe that's why I chose this name. I don't know. So tuning more into the altar behind me. These womb teachings, the true awakening of the womb, feminine sexuality, the voice, the elegance, the nobility of woman, is being interfered with. We have to be vigilant to this influence and wake up pretty sharpish to where it is. I expect everybody on this call knows exactly what I'm talking about and will be able to accurately nod in the direction of a real life human being who is breeding this influence. If you are interacting with it, stop immediately. If your friends are interacting with it, give them this video or simply tell them straight. Because we have to start speaking, beloved friends, and not be afraid of it. Another great clue you're interacting with it is the feeling that you're being watched and overheard on the inside. That's because you probably are. And again, it's the intuition speaking quite clearly to you. But you're not ready to hear that level of reality. But that is a truth. Because you're feeding something. Your friend will be feeding something. A very sophisticated, near perfect replica of truth, replica of Mary Magdalene, replica of the Black Madonna, of Kali. I've even seen people do a replica of Kali, personally raising up their own reservoir of anger, directing it towards a student who has personally offended them, and then called it Kali. When you've been interacting with this falsity, you have a good nose for when it's around again. And my nose was giving me very sincere information. There's another one. And it's in those that I love the most, I admire the most. Great, powerful teachers. Maybe it's even in me. That's how good it is. The purpose of this call is to start having this conversation and to be very aware of its existence. If you are on a womb path, you are taking something into you. Like a child, you shall give birth to an offspring. This will be your legacy. So when we've gone, beloved ladies, when we're, in the earth, becoming mushrooms, or green moss, I hope, we have left something behind. We have left behind a legacy. It is my greatest and most sweatiest prayer that I'm bearing good fruit, as are you bearing good fruit, that what we're giving birth to is not rotten or contaminated. Now, even if we have given birth to a few rotten tomatoes or apples, deep, 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 sincere, devotional prayer is the only thing that got me straight again. Real prayer, prayer when you're on your knees, prayer when you know all you are is a daughter, a child, child that's gone wrong, a child that took a twist in the path. Just because you've bared bad fruit doesn't mean you'll always be that. If we turn to the altar or to God in humility and vulnerability, that level of redemption comes our way. But we have to be so willing to feel that shame, and I had shame around this. Couldn't believe I'd interacted so intimately with this. That must mean there's something really wrong and really bad with me. So I never led on, but slowly, veils and silences are being lifted. I really call to you, as I call to myself, to really take in, integrate, and birth out the real womb mysteries, or the real yogic practice, or the real tantric practice, or the real Christ teaching, the purest, the most holy, the closest to the source that we can possibly voice, be, hold, share, transmit. We've all, well, maybe not all, but I watch the news every now and again. There's a part of me, like a few years ago, I was very into watching Fukushima, really trying to get as close as I can to the real news of Fukushima. Well, that part of me is awake again, and now I'm really looking at the United States and North Korea and this potential nuclear war that could happen. And that is what breathes down my neck, as well as the madams behind me, the black Madonnas and Kalis. That is the permission, emphasis, and inspiration that keeps me stepping into the fire. As wonderful as it is being on this call, and I can only see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can only see 5 windows. And they're beautiful faces. Most of them I know and love dearly. There's a part of me that is loving seeing you all. There's a part of me wondering, what am I going to face tomorrow morning when this really goes out there? Because it's the same energy as Kim and Donald. It's the same horrendous force. Think about it for a moment. An influence that has been birthed and filled only with the intention to impersonate truth. And when we come to the spiritual path or the sexual awakening path, number one, you know how desperate we are. You know how we're looking, with the longing. The longing is so pure and so rich And we're so vulnerable, we don't know our ass from our elbows, and we're looking for a teacher, a guide. And it's your karma to interact with that which is going to impersonate, trap, crush, and almost drive you mad. This level of psychic warfare or spiritual terrorism is lethal. So if you know one of your sisters involved, do not keep quiet. She's interacting with a terrorist. If we could take off our glasses, our 3D glasses, and actually look quite clearly at the exchange, you would see the Spanish Inquisition. You would see the same people who burnt witches at the stake alive. You would see Nazis marching Jews into the gas chamber. And this is definitely going to be in a couple of your books in your bookshelf. How did I get away? There is one black and white answer I can give, and it's so clear. Cut every channel of communication. No text messages, no emails, no Facebook, no telephone calls, no meeting at the cafe. Everything has got to go. Everything that makes you think of him or her, because it's all energy. You're in a web. You're right in the middle of the black spider's web. Anything that makes you think or feel your connection with that person or community is got to go. Now this can, of course, be a member of your family. Do what you can. Thoughts feed this. Emotions feed this. Picking up a book feeds this. Reading a book feeds this. Playing a bit of music by that particular composer feeds this. We have to be willing. And I've sort of been semi-willing. I've been willing to a certain degree. And I've had some very good friends continue to bite at my heels like little terriers. There's still this. You haven't got rid of this. Stop biting at my heels. I shouldn't jest. It's not a laughing matter. But she knows that I know that she knows. I kept going back, and I called it loyalty. I thought my silence was loyal. And I really believed I could heal that person. Oh, hang on a minute, that's a lie. Not only could I heal that person, I could heal the community. I thought my love and my heart was so massive. It would have this whitewash effect over the whole community. And that wasn't even just in this lifetime. I thought I could heal ancient Egypt at the same time. I really did. And I know that some of you know that about me. Because I really did. As I said on the Facebook video, I don't have answers. I don't want to give you answers because we're going to all have our way. We had our way to this. We will have our way away from this. But the cutting, the absolute cutting, was a massive turning point. Pete was another massive turning point. You think I could do this call without knowing he's across the room? No way. Pete, standing up and speaking out when I couldn't, another massive turning point. And that is something I want to really put forward to the brothers out there. If you know that your woman or your woman's best friend or your sister is involved, don't just stand there saying nothing. If you can see she's afraid and won't broach the subject, then do it on her behalf. Have a man-to-man. Take the bloke or female to one side and say, "Oi, I know what you're up to." These types are not prone to physical fighting, so don't think that they're going to turn around and punch you. They probably won't, because this type is an energy worker. They're not good in the wrestling match. In fact, they're pretty rubbish at that. Their weaponry, psychic, energy, emotions, outwitting you, clever with words, clever with the spoken word, clever with the written word. So you might have to just have a man-to-man and bloody threaten them, because it has to be stopped. And I know a lot of brothers who haven't done anything. They just sit there. Oh, this is one of your great spiritual lessons. I'm just going to sit there and watch you fucking die in front of me. No, we all have to do something about this. And of course, the guys also have, as some have shared with me, there's a kind of like silent, what's the word, conspiracy. A brother may not want to challenge another brother who is a teacher or facilitator, because deep down there in the mucky yuckiness, there is a sort of siding and agreement with the tactics being made, because the other brother wishes he could be that strong, that menacing, that charismatic, that seductive. And so he lives a fantasy out through that twisted facilitator, not daring to confront. And this information was given to me firsthand by a dear brother who works cleanly in these circles. So there's a right old mess out there. I just want to finish with something like, do your duty. With whatever time we have here on this earth, as a member of the human race and as a member of spiritual community, friendship, our spirit wants to go home. It wants to connect with its true divine parent. If you know of anyone who's fucking around with that, whilst we have an earthly voice and an earthly face, and an earthly body. Let us not be afraid, and let us have this conversation. And call out those in a very obvious way who are representing this influence. If you have a question, just unmute yourself. And I'll do my best to answer. I see a little hand. Does that mean Marianne?
Yeah.
Ah, yes.
Hi.
Hi.
I have a question. It's about the military interrogation technique that
Oh,
you
yes.
posted, and I have a friend, and I think she might be a victim of that. Could you please elaborate, if you may?
Oh, absolutely. So, my husband Pete is an ex-soldier. He was in the military 14 and a half years and was a grenadier guard, one of those men with the red jackets and big black hats that guarded the Queen. Obviously, not only do I talk to him about all of this stuff, he overhears the Skype calls, because there's a lot of ladies coming my way wanting clarification on what it is that might be happening to them. And a few years ago there was one lady speaking, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back, and he started speaking out about this. And he has categorically said, this level of terror and intensity and gaslighting and breaking you down and into pieces is a classic representation of professional interrogation techniques. That this is what happens if you are a suspected terrorist. This is what happens if the military gets hold of you and thinks you are a threat to society. This is what I have been exposed to. This is what many of us have been exposed to. It's not just, an uncomfortable, hot hour on the hot seat, being like severely questioned or gaslighted. It is a constant burn. You're in the saucepan, being gently boiled. So Marianne, your